Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show. I'm Bojack the horse. Bojack the horse. Don't act like you don't know.
Was that the beginning to Big Mouth?
No, it was the first little chunk from my my new rap album. What do you think?
I think it's quite derivative of Bojack Horseman. But other than that,
Well, it's not derivative. It's a reference.
Oh, it's a reference.
If Stranger Things has taught me anything, it's that you can just you can be derivative and then later say it's a reference.
Oh, well, in which case then it's rather excellent and
Thank
critically acclaimed, and I'm sure it'll have a big fan base that thrives and swallows up whatever is given to them.
Thanks. I'm thinking of getting Millie Bobby Brown on one of the tracks, rapping. She's very popular at the moment.
Yeah, no, maybe. I think that'd be a very good idea.
And who's Winona Ryder? She's also in it. I'm thinking of getting her on another track.
Okay, I think that's very much doable.
And can't remember who's the guy that was Hellboy, and he's in Black Widow.
I have no idea.
He's the one everyone loves, the sheriff. His name has completely escaped me.
What, the original Hellboy or the 2019 Hellboy?
No, the 2019 Hellboy. Oh, David Harbour, is it?
I have no idea. I didn't see that film. Wasn't it that's supposed to be one of the worst films?
I walked out, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I saw it in 4DX as well, so I was getting sprayed left, right and centre with just crap and wind. And also, there was a guy behind me who was ill and he kept sneezing into a tissue. And you know what 4DX is, don't you? It's like the seats are all rocking.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
A better experience in the cinema. Well, it's supposed to be. It's not. It's far worse. Yeah, and the seats rocked during an action scene, and I had a cup of water in my hand, and then I went to drink the water after the seats still rocked everywhere, and there was a snotty tissue in my water. So I think what had happened is the guy behind me had flung his tissue during the commotion, and it had landed one seat below into my fucking drink.
Is that why you walked out?
No, I walked out because the film was a bunch of snot, but that did make me feel ill. And
That typified it.
Yeah. I was like, ooh.
So why did you choose to open with the Bojack Horseman theme today?
Well, I wanted to plug my upcoming rap album.
But
you
why
can
else?
drop it. Leisure Boat Captain, that's me.
Why else did you decide to do that?
Because I finished Bojack Horseman this week, Chris. I did, yeah. A week behind you and the rest of the world, but we got there.
I in fairness, it's a bit of a. I would say it's probably the most depressing series of the most depressing show on television. So I'm not surprised that you needed to be in a good headspace to watch it.
Well, I set aside some time on Friday to watch it, and then I was going to do some editing, and I ended up doing the editing on Saturday instead because basically as soon as I finished it, I was like, you know what, I don't feel like doing anything today. I think I'm just going to nap. Yeah. Felt awful to watch, but also now that a few days have gone by, uplifting. Do you think you got what you wanted from it?
I think I got everything that I could have wanted given the circumstances. And originally I was a bit like, oh, this all feels like quite rushed to some extent, and I kind of forgave it for the context of it feeling rushed because obviously Ralph wanted to do 2 full seasons, and he was given...
Was it exactly 2, he said?
I think so, yeah.
Right.
He was given half truncated seasons, which actually, when you think about it, loses 8 episodes in total, 4 off each end, which is the length of a full season. So I feel like we probably would have got Series 6 being about the rehab stuff. He comes out halfway through. Oh, we get the Hollyhock thing, and then he's teaching at Wesleyan at the end, and maybe we have a bit of uplifting, and it ends on the cliffhanger of the Charlotte phone call. And then maybe part 2 would have all been the fallout of that. I don't know whether that's true. I'm just saying, I feel like there was room to bulk it out, but I think overall I was extremely satisfied with it. And I think there's a few episodes that stand amongst the best of the series. I don't quite think it's as good as Series 6A, which for me is one of my favourite series of the show ever. But it's definitely up there with the best series of the show. And I think there is so much to it that I feel it really smashed out the park.
I think it's interesting that you said that's where you put the split, because during the final... full spoilers, by the way. During the final episode, it's revealed that he didn't die in the pool and he's been in prison for months, and it's sort of that quick fire montage. I thought, oh, that's probably where the extra season's gone, and we've truncated it. We've put it all in this opening bit, and maybe that final season would have been him in prison.
But I don't think we necessarily needed this whole oh, we don't need to know the drawn-out kind of context of that, because I feel like we got all the kind of emotional closure that we needed, and then the finale was just sort of like goodbye to everyone that we've kind of grown up with on the show and known. And even in that finale, there are hidden some really, really good endpoints. Like he's in a scene in the cafe talking to Mr.
You're
Peanut
talking
Butter.
about Gina?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can see Gina in a poster in the background. Or the fact that the jury's made up of some of the people who he's wronged, like...
it's people going all the way back to like season 2.
It's season 1. It's the guy from Dibs from episode 3 is in there, and the elephant in the room that he's like, should we talk about the elephant in the room? And he walks out and gets really offended. He's on the jury. There's loads of random people who hate him. So I feel like we got tiny closures, and I don't really like the idea that a lot of people were kind of criticising, saying he should have had a final confrontation with Hollyhock. But I don't think he...
That bit particularly gutted me. It's horrible that you just... Because you see her in a random episode, don't you? And then you actually never see her again. You hear like a voicemail, I think, and then you see the letter, or you see him read the letter, and that's it, isn't it?
That was the thing. I mean, really, the only reason she got that voicemail and then changed her number was she wanted to know that Bojack had received the letter. That's the only reason I think she stopped. She didn't block and change her number. It was like she wanted to know that Bojack had rang, confirmed he'd received the letter and read it. She didn't want to talk to him. Clearly, that's what the letter said. I think it's pointless speculating what the letter said. And in a way, I think it rides in the face of what Bojack's always been about, which is Bojack's always wanted these big TV-esque, finales to his life. He's wanted these huge crescendos, so everything can reset.
Yeah.
And actually, life isn't like that. And, when you actually break down, like, Hollyhock, she's only known Bojack about 2 years. He waltzes into her life.
She's in a transient period of her life, isn't she? She's at university. I think she's got bigger fish to fry. I don't think that's the last she'll ever speak to him. I think it all kind of parallel, and I think they kind of timed it up for that very reason of Todd reconnecting with his mum. I feel like, many years later, they can still kind of have a relationship. I feel like that's maybe where Hollyhock and Bojack will go eventually. Yeah, but it's not for us to know, and I'm okay with the idea that, if you want to watch it and take away that that's the last time they ever spoke, or maybe that's just the last time they're going to speak for a long time. I think that's up to you as the viewer.
See, I think they'll never speak again, because the way I look at it is he came into her life, or she sought him out. She got that as a result of meeting him. She got into that trouble with becoming addicted to dieting pills on the hands of his mum.
Yeah.
Forgave him for that. And then, after forgiving him for that, she then finds out all these seedy things about his past that he's kept from her. She doesn't need this force of toxicity in her life. She doesn't need it.
But I think that's because the Bojack she says goodbye to, he changed on a material level, didn't he? But it's only at the very, very end of this series, in the final episode, that I feel like he's going to beat his sobriety record. He's going to finally become maybe that different Bojack that we're never going to have to see.
I think his problem is that he craves almost, not attention, but he craves, like, people being around him. And I think that's what attracts him to, like, the spotlight. Like, you see that in episode 4, where he goes for that interview, and, everything's resolves itself, and he can't not give in to the idea of getting all this attention.
Yeah.
So then again...
you're talking about the second half of the season.
He collapses into that again. And part of me thinks that, like, as much as he'll be beating his sobriety record and stuff, we don't know whether he just sinks back into toxicity again, because we've seen all these efforts that he's ever had to change. And does an 18-month stint in prison really show him? I think what he's got to come to terms with is that all these people that were important in his life, they're not in his life anymore.
Yeah.
Like, he's not going to see Todd again. He's not going to have a relationship with
Do you
Diane.
think? Because I think that's what's so great about the finale. I agree. I don't think he did change all those times when he said he was going to across the series. I think maybe in increments at best. But seeing him hit rock bottom, and he said he's hit rock bottom before, but the finale, it's like he's truly hit rock bottom. The fact he went to prison over it, and as he says, pretty much for everything, and he did nearly die. I feel like that's finally maybe the ending that he's been craving, And when Diane says, life's a bitch and sometimes you keep on living, I feel like that to me was this whole time, he's kind of wanted to go out in a showbiz ending and be that guy that overdosed in the middle of a pool, and he didn't get the ending that he wanted. He didn't get to be Walter White, closing out his final moments, dying. He has to just keep going. And I feel like maybe, to me, like Todd was happy to see him, Princess Caroline was happy to see him. Like, I know obviously they don't have the same relationship that they did, but my hope is that even though we'll never get to see it, one day Bojack will bump into those people and they'll have nothing but kind things to say to him.
But I think the idea is that those people, especially Diane, like, were in this circle with him, and now that he's kind of not necessarily breached their trust, but they've moved on from him. Like Todd started out, as his roommate.
I don't think they'll know him regularly again. I mean, particularly with Diane, she's moved away, hasn't she?
Oh, that's what I mean. I mean those people aren't main characters in his story anymore. Like, they'll only ever be people he was once really close with. And
that's
really,
why the show's so good, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it feels true to life in the way that when people do kind of leave your life, or they were important at a certain stage, whether you were, in education or at a certain workplace or traveling or whatever, you might still have a fondness for them, but they're no longer kind of in your life. I really like that Diane moves away, and then she sort of starts this relationship with Guy, and then. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Guy never meets Bojack, does he?
No, I mean, there's actually a line in the series where he says, "It's weird to me that this person obviously played such an important part in your life and you never speak about him." And I think like that to me was Diane had been stuck in this circle of self-loathing. And as much as I think they were good for each other in terms of airing out each other's problems, I think, as we saw all the way back in series 2 and 3, they also can sometimes suck each other into their own toxicity.
Yeah.
When she's living at the flat and they're both just sat there living like shit.
I think it's for the best that they have that chat together, and maybe they bump into each other once or twice and have postcard contact. And I'm so glad that she got her happy ending, or at least the makings of one.
I agree. I think she was always kind of the character that I wanted most to have a happy ending alongside Mr. Peanut Butter, and I'm glad the ending that Mr. Peanut Butter got was enjoying being himself. He's always latched on to people in relationships, and he's always latched on to kind of these women, as Diane said in series 5, these young women who are in awe of him, and then they grow up.
Yeah.
And he's always used that as like a way to retain his youth. And then the fact that for Mr. Peanut Butter, the ending for him is that he just finally feels at a place where he's happy in himself and he doesn't have to do all these grand, ridiculous things and kind of falsify his own happiness, because he's always kind of craved surface level happiness. That's kind of, I think, why he's always been like good, close with Todd. It's like, oh, we'll do this really fun thing. Oh, I'll be mayor because everyone will go, hey, but really, it's that thing that Bojack said all the way back in series 3. You get to a point in life where everybody loves you, but nobody likes you. And I feel like that's just as true for Mr. Peanut Butter as it always was for Bojack, in that he's always just been
they've always been two sides of the same coin, haven't they?
Oh, they have, absolutely. And I love that we finally got a payoff to the sad dog meme. Like, he was finally actually just really, really sad. Yeah. I don't think anyone needed to die. I think it would be very grandiose for someone to die. There was loads of theories leading up to it that, someone would die, maybe Peanut Butter dies and it comes out of nowhere, etc.
Yeah.
And I was really glad that they did a fake out death, because it almost felt like you got to experience that kind of crescendo of, oh, he has to do this grand thing, but actually life goes on.
Life finds a way.
No, but it's true, isn't it? Like, it's such a good finale in that sense, because it reminds me of a better executed version of how they wanted to end Peep Show to me, where life just... We
leave the characters, but the characters continue living.
You're done with this story. It'll kill me, actually, if they go, oh, we're going to do a Bojack movie that ties it all together, like El Camino or something.
They do anything like that?
I hope not.
I wouldn't be shocked if it comes back one day.
But I don't want it to, because I think it wrapped itself up... So in the same way that I don't want a Peep Show reunion, it wrapped itself up so well and felt so...
I do, however, think there's a bit of leeway with certain stories, like, the Before trilogy by Richard Linklater.
Yes.
That catches up with these characters, after big, sizable time jumps. And I feel like it's at the stage now where, even though it's kind of like a trilogy, you'd be happy for them to go back and tell a new story, like another 10 years later or whatever. And, like with Phoebe Waller-Bridge saying, oh, I might do Fleabag Series 3 when I'm 40, even though that story wraps up in a really satisfying way for me. I would be open to seeing, oh, well, now we're catching up with these characters. In the same way that what you're saying about when the series ends, these characters' lives continue on living, we've just left them. I'm equally kind of open to, well, we've left them, and then maybe one day when time has passed, when the time is right, when there's something to say about being in a different stage of your life, maybe we'll see these characters again. Even if it like if it was 20 years before they did another Peep Show. Do you know what I mean? And then there was... I'm not just saying bring it back, because we all love Peep Show. I'm saying if they felt like there was something they could say about reaching that stage of your life, in the same way that they told parables about being at the stage of your life that you're in when Peep Show was airing, and the same thing with Fleabag, same thing with Before, and the same thing with this, then I would be open to that.
I could be open to it. I just worry that what we got here was a story about not almost the ending we got was about life not having an ending. And it feels so perfect for me to kind of have this kind of lack of closure as a form of closure. And I think that was such a, not necessarily brave, but I think it was it did what Bojack, so true to what Bojack is as a show, which is to kind of deconstruct these ideas that we have about life and relationships, that there is a plot and a B plot, etc. And it always broke that apart. You know, we used to have supporting characters, and now what we really ended up with was 5 leads by the end of the series.
But I guess I mean in the sense that, like, for example, with Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Fleabag, if she does come back for series 3 when she's much older, I don't think it will be, oh, all that stuff that you didn't get closure on, we're going to open up all these threads again. What happened to the priest? What happened to this? I think it will just be a new story set with that character when she's older. That's what I kind of mean with Bojack. Like, I'd be happy to see him again one day, but it's not about, well, what did Hollyhock's letter say? You know, did he get back with Hollyhock? Like, I don't care about any of that stuff, or at least in the sense that, like, we've gotten the closure that we're ever going to get.
That would be my fear, though, was that we would get something like El Camino. What did Jesse do, you know, as he drove away? And that would always be my fear.
Well, the problem with El Camino is he starts and ends up in the exact same place. So
that would be my fear with
superfluous.
With this Bojack resurrection. I would always live in fear. Like, I'm not saying they couldn't pull it off, and I would trust them, but would I trust Netflix to resurrect it? I'd be more... my more eye-rolly conclusion would be, we're going to do a spin-off where you find out what happened to Gina and Kelsey and Hollyhock, and it's like, the point is that you're not... You know what I mean? What would worry me is that they would reopen wounds that, for me, needed almost to stay closed in an interesting way to kind of add weight to Bojack.
Yeah.
Because...
It's a complete tightrope walk, isn't it, to answer questions. I mean, again, with Before... Have you seen any of the Before?
No, I haven't, actually.
So in the first one... it's left ambiguous whether they sleep together, and they basically have this agreement at the end of the movie that they're going to try and meet up again. And obviously it's before, like, the time of social medias, so they're just sort of banking on the fact that they're going to meet at this train station again in like a few months' time. And obviously the movie ends and you never know if they did it. So when they went to make Before Sunrise, the second part, they obviously had to answer all those questions. Did these things happen? Did one of them or both of them go to meet at the train station, or did neither of them go? And that's obviously dangerous because there's a comfort in the ambiguity. But I think sometimes saying, oh no, this is actually what happened and now we're going to explore it, is bold. And particularly with that movie, it really works. I get what you're saying with something like Bojack. I don't need to see, you know, the next time he meets Diane, it's going to be an innocuous conversation. They'll bump into each other, won't they? There'll be some sort of event, but I don't need to see what that is.
That's what I kind of liked about the prison element, was ultimately he didn't go to prison for anything that he'd done that you kept, that was, do you know what I mean? Like, they weren't red herrings per se, but the media reacted often as the media does with these kind of events of, yes, he was a pariah, etc. But actually, he didn't go to prison for Sarah Lynn. He didn't go to prison he went to prison because he did something in the moment stupid, which felt more true to life to me. Like, I didn't want him to go to prison for Sarah Lynn, because again, that's like, yeah, he gets to go to prison and it feels like a compound atonement for his crimes, but it's only 18 months.
It turns out that going to prison is very much like winning an Oscar, you know, like, you get it for the role that you were nominated in, but you really get it for your whole career.
Oh yeah, he was trialed by... I mean, you say that, but that's basically what happens. Isn't it? He gets trialed by public opinion, and he still, I wouldn't say gets off, but like, you know what I mean? Like, the thing with Sarah Lynn is he withheld evidence from the police, and as they keep pressing on, which you sort of ignore in a way, is that he waited around, as they say, for 20 minutes before anything happened. She could have survived, you know, and like...
Do you think she was definitely dead then?
I think she probably was. But I think the point is that
there's something incredibly dark in the idea that he could have saved her in it. That's way worse. That's, again, Breaking Bad, that's like him leaving Jane to die, isn't it?
Yes. But that's what I find interesting, is that for me, it's not about it's not about, for me almost, whether she was alive in those 20 minutes. It's almost about his thought process is so selfish that he wouldn't even consider the idea that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? How it works on Sarah Lynn. He says in series 5, he's the biggest victim of everything that happens for him because, quote, I watched this episode recently, like, those women probably don't even think about it, but I live with that guilt every day and I'm the victim in all this. And that's really what that thing is. That interview hits really to the core so well, is that he sees himself, and because he's our in often, we see him as almost a victim to the things that he does.
Yeah.
But really the things that he does produces victims. And as they say in the interview, they're saying he doesn't do it on purpose, does he? At no point is he going, I'm going to kill Sarah Lynn. But what he does is he disposes of people. He treats people in his life.
And he refuses to accept responsibility, doesn't he? He washes his hands of things in a way that he was there, but, you know, I shouldn't have to feel bad about this. But also I'm going to feel bad about this to satisfy my ego and, you know, my need to feel like this victim.
Yeah, and also, you know, it's there's so many telltale signs that we've had that, you know, all the way back in series 1, Herb Kazaz says to him, like, I'm not going to, you know, he says, I'm sorry, and he says, I don't forgive you, you know, I'm not going to give you this bullshit closure that you need to move on with your life. You know, like, it's like that, and that was really when the series kind of set its MO, was in that episode. I think it's called The Telescope. It's series 1, episode 8. He kind of they set up this idea of Bojack that he has always wanted these grandiose things, and he doesn't get them a lot, and life doesn't work like that. And I just think it's been such a brilliant theme throughout the series, and it really came to a head. I think it's interesting as well that, like, we were really happy for him at the end of series 6 that he'd found peace. You know,
it's heartbreaking, though, isn't it? Because there was a version of this where I think the series could have ended. I think it is the end of series 4 or 5 when Hollyhock's like,
series 4.
well, I've never had a brother before, and like he just kind of gives that kind of smile, and then it ends. But that could have ended the series for me. You don't need to see him change necessarily. I think you just need to see a glimmer of hope in the darkness that he could be someone else, he could be someone better. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like, this, at least for me, the finale gave me a bit of that.
It's what Diane says to him as well, isn't it? It's in the series 1 finale. She says something to him like, you know, when he asks her in Downer Ending, am I a good person, you know? And she doesn't answer, and she says, because I don't believe in good people or bad people, I just believe in good actions and bad actions. And then you're just kind of a sum total of those things. And I think there's, as depressing as that is, I think there's something quite liberating in that philosophy to many extent, because it shows that, like, for old Bojack Ills, it's not about him trying to be a better person so much as it's about him being a better person. Like, it's like Yoda says, isn't it? Do or do not, there is no try.
No, absolutely.
It's quite accurate, isn't it? It's like Bojack spends 5 seasons whining about how he's trying to be a better person.
Yeah.
And actually, in series 6, it's the first time that he actually takes some responsibility for himself and becomes that better person. But then it also begs the question, yes, he took those steps and he did improve. And, you know, at Wesleyan, he found a way for himself to kind of check his ego and feel fulfilled in a way that he'd never felt before. But does that then excuse all the shitty stuff he did and the fallout of all that stuff that he did? Do those two things balance on a scale? Or...
It's such an interesting question, isn't it? Because in the second half of this season, he's sort of saying, you know, I've changed. I'm not that person anymore. I shouldn't have all this stuff coming back up to haunt me. But, you know, you kind of should, because you never paid the price for those things. I mean, what do you think? Do you think him changing is enough?
I mean, that's the interesting question, isn't it? Because, you know, you think in life, if you want to look at it really straightforward, someone, you know, this is the hope of the criminal justice system, isn't it? Someone commits crime. Someone gets found guilty of crime. The prison sentence reflects the severity of the crime. That is the sort of the low point. After prison, they do not, you know, they learn from mistake. Because
they reintegrate into society.
Yeah, and because you've done your time, you know, you should be forgiven because you've paid the price. You know, there's been a cause, there's been an effect, reset. The issue with Bojack is he never got the cause. The issue with a lot of life is that's a very kind of rose-tinted way of looking at life. Often people do things and things happen to them that are outside of their control, and people do things and then things that happen as a consequence.
You might... There's no obligation to forgive anyone.
No.
Or to forget. And sometimes people don't get their punishments. Sometimes people do.
And that's what I think that show's mastered so well.
Yeah.
Because it makes you question all those things. Because also it does that thing that, obviously it's surface level comparison, but it does that thing that Breaking Bad did. You know, it puts you in the mindset of a protagonist that you find sympathetic, and you go along with him with this ride where he does increasingly... In fact, it's not even increasingly unpleasant things. It's much more like a up and down.
Yeah.
Of the kind of things that he does. And because of that, your empathy is directed towards him, right? And you forget about the little things. And that was what was so brilliant about that Series 6 mid-finale is, Oh yeah, of course. He strangled Gina, and that's obviously just like she's just got to live with that.
Yeah.
And we just forgot about Gina, right? Lol, she was that Series 5 support character, or like he got Kelsey fired and no one wants to work with her anymore, and all this stuff. And he took those kids and traumatized them. But poor Bojack, and it's so fascinating to me, just generally because it's such an interesting way to approach a drama because we're so used to dramas where a lesser drama would have done that thing that happened in Arizona. Is it Arizona? You know where I mean. Nevada,
at the end of
New Mexico.
Series 2, yeah.
New Mexico. And then in the series finale of 3, it would have all come up to the surface and we'd reset.
Yeah.
And it never reset, did it? It kept going. And you kept... And that's what I think is so fascinating. I think ultimately he deserves to pay for the things that he did because I think people deserve to pay for the things that they did as a way to make them feel...
I think it was the only way for him to truly change his ways. Like, as much as I would like to see him continue to teach and be that great drama professor and earn his way to a better life that way, he had to face some of those things, didn't he? There's something that had to be done.
We know that he was like never fully sober, really, because he felt. And this isn't at all for me to suggest that, if you fall back off the wagon, but it's more like he hadn't addressed the issues, really, that were at the root of his problems with alcohol.
He addressed the symptoms, didn't he?
Yeah, he addressed the symptoms. And so it was always setting him up to fail, whereas now it finally felt like he'd addressed the issues.
I think it's so great when Todd says, well, if you break your record, then each new day you'll break your record again.
Yeah.
Again, that's why I found that finale so hopeful. When I first watched it on Friday, I felt really dour. I think it was obviously coming back off the back of the penultimate episode, which is insanely depressing. And, if you want something to up your death anxiety, that's going to be the episode, isn't it?
Yes.
I'll see you on the other side. There is no other side. And then when I rewatched the final episode, I just felt like after time had passed, that was a perfect half an hour of TV. And it gave me such a lust for life afterwards.
I love the fact that peanut butter sticks by him as well.
Yeah.
Just little things like that. Oh, did you spot... Do you know the significance of the tar?
The tar? Oh, no,
yeah.
no.
It's a callback to one of the episodes with a flashback with Herb Kazaz and Charlotte. And Herb goes away, when he's dating Charlotte, but it's obviously just like a beard situation. And him and Charlotte stand on the ledge, and he says something to the effect of, I feel like Hollywood's just this tar pit sucking me up all the time. Which I think is what the black tar is a callback to. He says something to that effect. I
wasn't sure if it was a reference to Venom, the Tom Hardy film.
But I thought it was just going to be a black tar, but it interested me because I was like, oh, there is... Because, I got early on, I was like, oh, he's drowning. And obviously we've seen that telegraphed in the intro. It was nice that we got to see the intro played out as an episode. But it was fascinating to me.
Do you think the intro of him falling into that pool and then seeing everyone looking down on him, do you think that's what he actually saw in that episode?
No,
and that's like the opening is our perspective of him, what he saw on the trip.
Oh, you're saying he's hallucinating?
Yeah. So like that, like what we've been seeing for years was what was always going to happen in that scene, but like you see it from his perspective in the opening credits, and then you see it from how it actually is in the episode. So I feel like you would think that, wouldn't you? Well, I don't know. We'd all like to think our loved ones are all surrounding us as we fade out.
It's ironic though because he's alone, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's completely alone. You know what, as well, that we haven't really addressed? I think it's really fascinating again that from the episode you think, oh, Diane didn't pick up. Oh, that's a shame. And then you find out what he actually said to her. And it was, I'm going for a swim. You'll never see me again. And it's like awful. The emotional, the toxicity of that as a statement is so horrendous.
But also, isn't it interesting that she was like, I wish I could show you the voicemail, which means that she's kept it. She never deleted it.
Yeah. But then also she's not willing to show it to him as well and give him, again, that closure.
Well, do you think that's just because she didn't bring the phone? Do you think she intentionally didn't bring it because she knew he was coming?
I think it's arbitrary. I don't think she'd ever properly show it him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm just so glad that it ended so strongly. I want to go back through from the start and finish it. Because you started watching it a bit later, didn't you? I think I started watching it when the second season aired.
I started watching it just before Series 6. So I've got it very fresh in my... I've got it very, very fresh in my brain, kind of how the little puzzles... And then I've been going back and watching after this finale aired, like, select episodes, just because they interest me. Like, Hank After Dark I watched the other day, the one about the Bill Cosby satire one. That's a brilliant episode. And again, that never comes back because that's life. And you just see him on TV occasionally in the background.
Well, to anyone that was disappointed with the finale or expected something amazing to happen or some sort of closure to happen or some sort of event to kick it off, when he talks to Princess Carolyn, he's like, oh, I kind of thought I'd turn up and there'd be some problem that only I could fix and I'd have to talk you into getting married. And she's just like, no, like, that's signalling to you, isn't it? These things aren't what really happen in life. You don't get that big event. You don't get to stop the middle of the wedding and run off into the sunset.
How fucking self-important as well is that as well?
Oh, it's textbook
so
narcissism, isn't it?
Yeah. But that's what's so interesting. Like, I think that is ultimately his biggest problem. Is he is a narcissist, but it's weird because he's had such it's almost like he had a shitty hand in life and he worked around it. And so he feels like not untouchable, but more like he feels like the world then as a result still owes him for not being happy.
But I think that's a problem that lives in everyone, like, because everyone's been hard done by in some sense or has experienced something horrible. And I think it's very easy when you've been bad to someone or when you've done something wrong to sort of think, oh, because every human being thinks in terms of their own life and their own luck and their own misfortunes, don't they? Like, oh, it's okay for me to drop this litter on the ground because I gave to charity last week. Obviously, I didn't do that.
Just as a side note, that is like that as a side note, like that is probably one of the most frustrating things with the climate, isn't it? People do, but it's logical, right? People go, oh, well, if I'll take a mega jet somewhere, but then I'll do all this recycling. But it's like, but yes, you balance the scale, but
we all kind of feel like, I mean, even down to the tiny things of like, oh, I've earned it today to have this chocolate bar. I went to the gym yesterday. It's always this constant like topping up and balancing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if something bad has happened to you, maybe it gives you that lifestyle of, I did this thing or this thing happened to me. And I think what Bojack's the show is so good at saying is, abuse or traumatic experiences that have happened to you can shape you, but you should never use it as a platform to be terrible to your fellow man. It's about how you live your day to day and what you choose to do and how you choose to be kind. And I guess it relates back to Princess Caroline saying about the actions, isn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what happened yesterday. What matters is the now. How are your actions today? What have you done to help people?
That always fascinated me in the because I watched it last night. The episode with the interview in the final run, where he says after the second interview, "What do you think?" And she says, I think you have 3 hours before your world totally changes. And I love that he goes and does that stand-up gig and stuff like that. And it's so interesting because it's like, that is one of the few times he ever lives properly in the present. Because he knows his world's going to implode, doesn't he? So he's just like, I'm just going to do this thing before everything around me just becomes shit. And it's
like the last time, without that context, people will adore him.
Yeah. Completely. I just wish we could gush back more. I don't think it's perfect. By the way, I really don't think it's... I don't think it's perfect.
I didn't think that at first, but then rewatching just the final episode, I'm like, what else could you have done or what else could you have wanted, really?
I also, you know what? It stayed away from any cliched thing that I was dreading.
Yeah.
Like, it was a dream. Or not that they would ever do that. You know what I mean? Like, it strayed away from every possible shit kind of cliched series finale. In many ways, I do love the Breaking Bad finale. Well, by finale, I mean the final stretch. But that's mainly because of Ozymandias. I think Felina gives into that kind of temptation to give Walt his all guns a-blazing bullshit.
No, absolutely.
Vindication of himself. When really Ozymandias, to me, is the true finale in many senses because that's when all the bullshit finally stops and everything that he's done collapses.
It makes you wonder after watching Bojack, would the more cruel but deserved end for Walter White be like serial killers or master criminals? He just spends the rest of his life rotting in prison. The cancer would have returned, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And he would have died at 80 alone in prison, never has a relationship with his son. Like, that would have been an actual punishment, wouldn't it? He doesn't really get punished. No, in a sense.
And he dies thinking of himself in many ways as a hero. He tells Skylar for the final time, oh, I liked it because I was good at it. So he finally emancipates himself of the, oh, well, I'm just doing this because of X, Y, and Z. So he emancipates himself from that. He gets his final showdown. He saves Jesse. And then he gets to stand by and look at the fruits of his labours one last time. and go and collapse on the ground.
But I understand why you kill him, because if you don't kill him, there's always, even if you Vince Gilligan aren't taking the reins of whatever sequel show happens, they might bring him back, mightn't they? They might fuck it.
Also, as well, he is basically MacGyver, isn't he? Like, that's his strategy. He can get out of anything. So part of me would think he rots in jail, but then does he really rot in jail? Like,
yeah.
Or
also,
you know what could have been quite cool? I'm just spitballing. What if he went to jail? Obviously, he got all those prisoners killed, didn't he, by his Nazi connections?
Yeah.
Like, someone from Cartel is presumably in a jail in New Mexico.
Yeah.
Like, he could just get fucking stabbed up in jail or something, couldn't he? And that would be a fitting end for him. Like, nothing heroic or poetic, just like a... Not that I'm encouraging that in any form, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, from a character perspective, he needs something undignified to me.
It would kind of remind me, even though this wasn't the intention, this is what I always think of with, the Joker in The Dark Knight. The way we were just sort of saying Walter White getting the death is kind of like him not getting his comeuppance, but him rotting in jail is, right? Well, we never hear about the Joker ever again, do we, in the Nolan Batman universe?
No.
So we're left to assume that even though he was hanging there upside down, all smug, going, I win, we're destined to this forever, what really happened was he just became any other prisoner, didn't he? And he probably died of old age.
Yeah, I mean,
And
ignoring
he
the
never
comic
became
book context of Arkham Asylum being...
But it's a different universe, isn't it? And I think in the Nolan universe, the worst end the Joker could have ever had was to not affect anything and to just spend the rest of his days in a padded cell.
Yeah, I agree.
So maybe that should have happened to all White. But anyway, I digress. I still love the Breaking Bad finale.
Oh,
I love the Bojack finale.
I do. I think the Breaking Bad... Do you know what I mean? I'm more saying it would have been interesting to me because sometimes I think, why did he have to go out in this all guns blazing fashion kind of thing? I mean, I think the thing for me is there needed to be a way to emancipate Jesse because he'd just been through, for the past 2 seasons, like, horrendous stuff happening.
But that's why I didn't need El Camino, because it's like that scream he gives of like, yes, I'm fucking free at the end of the finale. Didn't need anything else to be added to it.
No, it didn't.
Unless you're going to take it in a different direction or tell a story that's worth telling. But to me, just spending another hour of him trying to get away and get free of the authorities, I need to sort of end up with that same sort of catharsis that he had an hour beforehand, and a cameo from Walter White. I just didn't need it.
Yeah, and also we just didn't need... Like, no one cared, really, did they, about what happened to Jesse after? It's such a weird idea. Like, it was like, as you say, like, it was just perfection to have him just be like, haha, this is I'm finally free of... Not just I'm free of my present situation, I'm free of everything.
I think it's weird to do it immediately after the finale ended. I would be more open to 10 years later, we meet Jesse Pinkman and we see what he's up to and we get this whole new story. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the same way that Better Call Saul is kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
If you want to do that. But obviously, the optimum is we never do that.
No. Can I just say, the way he beats Lydia always really satisfies me. With the stevia and the ricin. I just think that's so brilliant. The way he answers the phone and she's like, oh, whoa. And he's like, yeah, oh, by the way, probably you'll start to feel a bit of pain in a few hours. And then she's suddenly like, it's just such a perfect end for her because she's such a perfectionist.
He can MacGyver anything, can't he?
No, he really can't. I mean, let's face it. He gets out of all these issues with Gus. Like, obviously, very dramatically, but it all neatly works up for him because the next series he just picks up Gus's business, doesn't he?
Do you think it would have been a problem since he can MacGyver his way out of anything? Imagine if he'd have gone to prison and he'd have ended up sharing a cell with Slipknot from Suicide Squad, who is the man who can climb anything. That's what they say. So put the man who can climb anything with the man who can MacGyver anything. They would have broken out, wouldn't they?
Yeah. I mean, we'll see that in the upcoming DCEU films.
What, Slipknot X White?
See, whenever you say Slipknot, I just think of the band. So I'm just picturing some guy with, like, mask on his face, like, playing the drums or something. Or, like Corey Taylor, I think his name's the lead singer, just screaming, and Walter White's just there, like, well, this is a fitting end for me, a man who likes Steely Dan. That was honestly, what a fantastic time to be alive when Breaking Bad was actually just ongoing. No, but do you know what I mean? Like, when it was ongoing, like, now I just feel like I talk about it in past tense and I know everything that happened, but when it was going on at the time and unravelling, and you didn't know what was happening week to week. I mean, Series 4, it's not even my favourite series, but it's the most action-packed, pulse-racing piece of television. It's like you got an action movie every week in that series, from Box Cutter all the way through to him blowing up Gus. And then we get this, 5 or 3 are probably my favourite seasons, but I just love, I could gush about Breaking Bad all day.
We need to do a video on it soon, don't we?
Yeah.
We need to do something on it.
It just feels a bit like everything that's been said about the show has been said.
Yeah.
And that always, for me, I'm just a bit like, when we run this channel, I always want to make things that feel like they've been unsaid, or we talk about topics that maybe people...
Or we've cornered something personal that someone else hasn't covered about a subject.
I don't feel like, for me, a lot of people have said things better than I could say about Breaking Bad, and a lot of my opinions on Breaking Bad are things that, someone will point something out to me and I'll go, oh, that's really cool. It's not a show... Not necessarily that I don't have a personal relationship, but it's just not something that I've ever felt I can think of in a way beyond, here's this thing you've already heard, and I'd never want to kind of do that.
However, if we did do a video on Breaking Bad, it means we would have to watch it again, which would be fun.
Yeah, that would be nice. Okay. Retract all points.
Sold.
Yeah. So, Doctor Who.
Doctor Who. The Cybermen. The Lone Cyberman. What do you think, Chris?
So I watched it twice now, and the first time I thought it was okay, and now I thought it was very good. And I'll tell you why I thought it was okay the first time. I thought, and then I'll tell you why it improved for me on the second watch. I thought it was kind of muddled.
We'll say what there's no right or wrong answers, but then afterwards we'll see what the right answers were.
Yeah, pretty much. I still stand by. I think it's quite a muddled story. I think there's a lot going on, and I think that's been, that is my main criticism of Series 12. I think there's often a lot going on.
It's the inverse of Series 11 where there were no concepts.
Yeah, I think it could have worked well as a two-parter. Yeah. Which I guess it is, in effect, spoilers, or as the start of a three-parter or whatever. I thought that the side characters were quite underdeveloped, specifically the women. I think there are times when it's very difficult to actually tell, other than actress recognition, who is Mary Shelley in that story.
I see what you mean. There's a lot of historical characters in it, and none of them get too much to do they? They're all kind of like touched upon. Some in a bit of a caricature fashion.
I mean, my big issue as well with it, probably my main issue with it is Percy Shelley's in the basement, so he's not present. And yet we spend a lot of time kind of glorifying the night as the creation of Frankenstein. Yeah. So you've got this idea, and then suddenly Percy Shelley's under threat, and she does this monologue about how words matter, and his words... And it's this kind of thing that I'm kind of getting a bit bored of in the Chibnall era historicals of. We go back in time, and this person is the most important person in history ever, and da-da-da-da. And we've seen it with the Rosa episode, we've seen it with the Nicholas Tesla episode, and now we're seeing it with the Percy Shelley episode. And yes, these people are very important, and I'm not trying to detract from their importance, but... It's becoming a bit cliched
when it's been done once
for the historical figure to be at the centre of everything, and it goes all the way back to historicals like the Shakespeare Code. What I like about the Unquiet Dead all the way back in Series 1 is I don't feel like Dickens is central to the story. He gets caught up in something that's kind of going on. Yeah, and I think that's a much better way, in my opinion, to do a historical than make them the most important person in the universe ever, and they are. And I like the idea that the Doctor would never be utilitarian, and I love that section where she's arguing with Ryan, and she says, "Who's got the the guts to call it?"
That's one of the best Whittaker scenes we've had.
You know what? I'd go as far to say I think it may be the best Whittaker scene.
It's just, week after week, her Doctor's just felt so much more expanded upon and fleshed out. And I feel like I know what she might do in any given situation. I feel like she's got a darkness to her now, which I think is integral to any Doctor performance. Just when she does things like when she confronts that lone Cyberman, and they're kind of back and forth thing, I feel like she's got a commanding presence, and they're on an even footing, and it just feels like she's commanding the companions in a way that she had no presence last season. When she says to them, "This isn't a flat team structure. I'm a mountain. I'm at the summit." It's that classic Doctor arrogance, which she didn't have in the last season.
No, she didn't. And I still think the characters, ultimately the companions, are underdeveloped. They're the least developed characters of New Who, I think. But I'm starting to get more and more that what they really are is not one companion, but they're the team, and she is the Doctor, and that's how Chibnall kind of wants you to look upon them, which I don't necessarily think is good, but I think that's what they're trying to do now, is it's the team in one corner, and the team kind of operate as the team, or the fam, and they argue and debate amongst themselves about the implication of the Doctor on their lives. And the Doctor is the Doctor, rather than all the companions have these oppositional and interesting dynamics with each other. I think they're a collective force.
Well, that's why they're always better when they're together than when you split them up. Any episode, as soon as you split them up, it's like, oh, well, great.
Yeah, and it's always Yaz who gets underserved in the split-ups. Yeah. Often because Graham gets paired with the Doctor.
Although Graham's had some fun things to say and do this season, but he's not had anything juicy to chew on, has he? Obviously, there was the mention of him seeing the ghosts in this episode. I don't know how that's going to tie together. And there was the dream about the cancer coming back. Although, of course, actually, we didn't touch on this last episode, did we? That super weird moment where he talks to the doctor about his cancer, and she just goes, "Yeah, a bit too awkward for this, soz."
Yeah, I mean, the BBC released a statement about it. I understand what they were trying to do. I don't think it works on Doctor Who. I understand
the Doctor is not. The Doctor is the kind of character that does everything that Whittaker did in going, "Yeah, sorry, not sure what to say here. I'm just going to go over to the console and something will come up." And then 30 seconds later, she should have said something to console him. Do you know what I mean? Or it brings to mind, in the Lodger, when Eleven says to Sophie, "Oh, well, I don't think you're ever going to go off travelling and do this stuff." And then she's like, "No, well, I bloody could." And he's like, "See, I was just trying to, get your best self out." That's what he does. Or that's what he or she does. So I felt like it was that sort of setup. Do you know what I mean? Like she was saying all this stuff like, "Oh, I'm a bit too awkward to engage in this." And then there was going to be some sort of supportive Doctor-esque payoff that was going to make it all right. And it just didn't come.
I think as well, the Doctor isn't a human. And as much as she has fallibilities and things like that, I think what you got to think about is that also this is a kid's show. Ultimately, it's a family show, and it's odds. And the Doctor often, as much as I often think this is a bit of a bad way to do the character, is portrayed as like a quasi-god, right? As this kind of supreme moral arbiter. And the best Doctor Who episodes obviously hold that to account, like Family of Blood, etc. But in moments like that is, as you say, that is when the Doctor has to come through, because the Doctor's role as like a character that people look up to, like not their role as a character in the show, but their role as a character that people look up to has to be that, they're a superhero, right?
Well, that's what's always made the Doctor so interesting, isn't it? Is that they present themselves as, "I'm just this wandering traveller, and I'm really humble, and I'm just here to pass through, and I'm just here to show you the world, show you the universe." And then when push comes to shove, the arrogance and the hubris comes out. That's when it's like, "No, you're here, you're my companions, you're my pets."
Yeah.
Obviously not. She doesn't really
I just
think
say,
that. That's when the best Doctor comes out.
I absolutely love that tiny callback on that note when she says, and the BBC actually confirmed this as well the other day, or not the BBC, Jodie Whittaker, when she says, "I will not lose another person to those things."
Yeah.
Which was, it's about Bill.
It's about Bill.
Yeah, Jodie said it specifically, that's what she was told, like, that was her motivation for it. It's a reference to what happened to Bill.
That's nice.
Because, I think that's fascinating, like, that they...
Bill didn't really die at the hands of a Cyberman, did he? Although, did the Doctor never sees her survive, does he?
Not to my memory, no.
So he does think...
He carries the weight of that.
How he does think she died. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to deal with that kind of trauma and why she might react to the Cybermen. In terms of how it leads into the finale, I think more and more now, based on the episode titles and what we just got, people have been saying this is the utopia to the sound of drums.
It definitely felt like that, didn't it?
Yeah. However, I disagree semantically. I think this is more the face of Raven to the Heaven Sent to the Hellbent, where I don't think the finale will be a straight two-parter based on the title.
I
think we're getting a cyber war story that wraps up where it turns out that something to do with the cyber war is to do with this
the roof doctor.
To do with the master, etc., etc. I think we're getting almost three standalone sort of stories that seg into each other.
The one thing I was thinking whilst watching this episode was this is all very interesting to me. I like the idea that there's this evil Cyberman empire, and this lone Cyberman's gone back in kind of a Terminator fashion, as we were saying last week, to get the controlling AI back. But that's so much story, isn't it?
Yes.
In a season where we've had a fake out Doctor / might be parallel universe Doctor / Captain Jax coming back, like that's already loads to chew on. And now in episode 8 out of 10, there's all this Cyberman stuff. So I am curious if indeed it is how you just suggested, and we go back to the Roof Doctor and all those kind of threads in episode 10. How is that possibly going to weave together?
I agree.
Or is it going to be Cyberman Part 1 this week, Cyberman Part 2, Cyberman Part 3, and then Roof Doctor comes back next year?
No, I think based on the title, the fact that the finale is called The Timeless Children.
Oh yeah, that is right.
I think that's what we're getting. Well, I think as much as I'm like, that would be neater, and I think we're getting this is the arc, this is what you're getting. So this is why I think it's too early to tell for me. This feels a bit like Fugitive of the Dune to me, where again everything's kind of gambling on this finale. So I've got no reason to come back to this. If the finale's awesome, great. We've had a really, really, really tight season. But because we've now had 2 standalone mythology episodes and a 2-parter that's a mythology episode, that's 4 out of 10 episodes leading into this finale. And the finale is obviously a 2-parter. So that's 6 out of the 10 episodes dealing with this arc and this mythology. Can I just say, though, this is, as much as, like, pre-payoff, this is one of the best done arcs in terms of, rather than just doing that kind of dun dun dun, someone said a code word that we got, and the way, this is one, I think, for me, the best done arc since probably The Crack, in terms of it feeding into stories and it weaving in and out of, and us getting standalone adventures, and then things that happen having consequences that ride over into other episodes, like The Crack does in Cold Blood, like it does in Time of the Angels.
Although Series 5 did a better job of, like, you're thinking about this Silurian story, oh my god, the Crack's turned up. You're thinking about the Angels, how they're going to stop it. Oh, the Crack's turned up. Whereas this was, episode 5 is so clearly the arc-heavy episode. This is where all the reveals are going to be. And then next week, Praxis.
But I still think it's the best we've got since then, because I think quite a lot of them... Because it's hard to call, even though I think Series 8 probably has arguably one of the best arcs, it's hard to talk about that because that's more a character arc, right? So it's less, Missy appears at the end of the episodes, but really it's about the Doctor questioning whether he's a good man. But in terms of this kind of blatant plot arcs, as opposed to character arcs, this for me, just as the amount of little soft teases we've had, the little leads, and the way it's racking in, as a journey, this has been really interesting.
And I do just respect that after a very boneless Series 11, where not much happened, there's been a commitment to trying to stuff a lot of ideas in. There's been a commitment to trying to give you bang for your buck. We've had The Master, we've had new monsters, old monsters.
More character work.
Also, just
little things like, I like that Ryan's nightmare is what happened to the mill from 55. Yeah. I like that in Praxis, they talk very offhand about, oh, you've been a bit distracted recently. Like, little things like that, I'm like, it's just nice to feel like there's a looming presence in the background.
There's drive to the Doctor's journey this year, which wasn't there in 2018 whatsoever. Also, the villains have been much better. I think that lone Cyberman, the way he moved, the performance, the makeup, the way, like, you can just see his exposed eye and the teeth, like, he's terrifying. And, that moment where Mary Shelley's like, you spared the baby, and then he's like, well, I spared him because he's weak.
And that's such a good subversion of that trope. Because when I was watching it, I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Historical figure inspires alien.
You're a father, aren't you? Yes. Oh, no.
Oh, I just want this pain to end. I know what that's like. Okay, I'm dead. And then he just goes, nah. I thought that was such a subversion of that classic Who. And it's gotten a bit eye-rolly as a cop-out, hasn't it? Appeal to X-creatures' emotions. We're not that dissimilar. And it's just like, yeah, we are dissimilar. I'm better than you. Take that. Ladder.
I like that it's cemented that one Cyberman who otherwise wouldn't be special at all into sort of kind of the main antagonist of this story, and it looks like the next story.
Yes.
They should do that more often. Why can't the big bad of the season be one Dalek that's gone off on this mission? Why does it have to be Davros?
That's what worked so well about having the Cult of Skaro.
Yeah.
Because you had this level of hierarchy. I agree. I think the creatures need hierarchy, and it's what makes Rise of the Cybermen and Age of Steel so good, is you have Lumic.
Yeah.
These presences that whereas when it's just 1,000 Cybermen, it's just the threat level for me depletes.
This has been the most chilling the Cybermen have been in a long time. It springs to mind, the end of the first half of Series 5, the finale, the Pandora opens, when Amy's just fighting the bits of the Cyberman. That's terrifying. And then you get that again in this week's episode, because it's just the one Cyberman. It's just this one creature that we're dealing with. It's not an army that she can just flick a switch and destroy them all.
Also, it's what we said in our video, right? Play emphasis on the body horror.
Yeah.
And things like that. And that immediately differentiates them from the Daleks. The fact that he's damaged. You can see it's such a better design than Danny Pink. It's such a better design than Danny Pink having no scars or nothing and just looking like, oh yeah, no, I'm chilling. Like, it's such a better design.
To be fair, the thing I did really like about the Danny Pink design was the bolts in his face. Oh, that was always a gross bit of body horror.
It was, but it always felt like, here's Danny Pink inside a thing. Whereas this is more like, here's this thing that's been cobbled and fused together.
It's the way his skin's kind of a greenish tint and his eyes are a different colour.
And his teeth.
He's lost his humanity, hasn't he? I see what you mean.
Like, it's interesting.
I'm really happy with the way the episode turned out. I wasn't sure in the first half, but I liked the perception filter and the way the geography was changing. I do feel like the payoffs in the second half were pretty decent. The Lone Cyberman was really interesting. I want to see more of him. I'd be happy if he survived next episode and kind of became a recurring threat. Why can't we get more villains like the Master or like Davros, where they come back every so often? Just create some new characters, create a new villain.
And
it's still based on an existing legacy monster, isn't it? It's just you're taking the Cybermen and you're doing something a little bit different. We're saying, oh, this Cyberman is going to be kind of like the Cult of Skaro. The Cult of Skaro were in series 2 and 3, weren't they?
Yes.
Why not give us something like that? But I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm cautiously optimistic that Chibnall's going to bring it home. I'm going to eat those words.
No, I think you are. We let's see. There's no point speculating on will he be any good.
Before we wrap up, is there anything you saw this week you'd like to shout out, or anything fun that you saw?
Not really at all, really. It's been a dry week for me in terms of watching, because I've just been rewatching Bojack Horseman and then watching Doctor Who.
Well, I'd just like to quickly speed round and say I saw Searching, the John Cho film, where it's all done through the computer screen. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
I'll show you the trailer after you haven't. It's basically like it's all from a computer screen, and you're only ever seeing him through webcams.
So it's a bit like Locke. It's got that kind of like gimmick.
Yeah, it's got that kind of thing where it's like it's built into this one scenario. It's about his daughter going missing, but it's really about the way we have all these social media platforms to connect to people, and he sort of doesn't really know who his daughter is in amongst him trying to find her. The resolution is a bit of a stretch, but I really enjoyed it, and the way it uses like text messages and for, like, for example, you know how you might type something out and then think, oh, that's a bit too harsh, or I don't know what to say, and then you type it out again. You see that with the characters, so you see kind of his internal monologue of what he's typing.
I see.
Yeah, it's neat. I think you'd enjoy it. And then I also watched at the Prince Charles Cinema yesterday, Insomnia, the Christopher Nolan. Have you seen it?
No.
I've not seen it before. I was blown away. It's 5 stars.
Really?
I thought it was a fucking masterpiece. Yeah, I was
Wow.
gripped from beginning to end. Within the first 20 minutes, it's not a twist or a reveal or anything, but what the movie says is it's about this thing, but also it's really about this other thing, and it's fucking dark. It's perfectly paced. It's fucking thrilling. I think you'd really enjoy it.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. Oh, and also it's set in Alaska, and the sun doesn't set because of where they are, so the whole thing's in daylight.
It's clever, that.
Yeah. Which is where the insomnia of the title comes from. But I won't give away any more, and I'm sure a lot of you listeners have probably already seen it because it's fucking old. But I also love that Warner Brothers, back when that came out, because it was the last thing he did before Batman Begins, saw that and were like, that's who should be making a Batman movie. That's why Batman's the best cinematic superhero, I think, isn't it? Because he gets the best talent in the industry.
Completely, because people take it more seriously, weirdly, than other superhero.
And on that note, I'm sorry, Chris, I'm just going to squeeze in this one little extra thing. The Pattinson reveal. That was... I
quite liked it.
What do you think? Yeah.
There's not enough information. Do you know what I mean? Like, the costume's cool.
Score,
let's wait for the story.
The score was fucking incredible, though. Do you not think?
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm never someone who goes, whoa, costume, like... You know what I mean?
I don't know. I think a good Batman costume is hard to pull off, and I think they've nailed it. You know the bat symbol is reportedly pieces of the gun that killed his parents.
Wow. Okay, that is a cool idea. But do you know what I mean? Like,
what more do you want, people?
Like, I'm a bit suspicious at the moment of... You know what I mean? Like, I'm constantly suspicious when things are so teased. Like, I'll wait for a trailer... I'll wait to see him move properly in it before I cast any opinion on it. I'll wait to see how it's colour graded. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's all in red at the moment.
I'm not sold on the movie yet, but I think there's a real concerted effort to give us something on the level of the Nolan films. Like, the director, the cast, the score. It's all got that kind of like AAA quality, premium feeling to it. Do you think he'll have short ears or long ears? Should we place bets now?
Probably long ears.
I think long ears as well, yeah.
I think it looks better.
I think it looks better for his kind of lean visage. So, but you know what? If you've got long ears, should I go short ears? What should we bet it on? Should we bet a butterscotch finger pie?
Okay, let's do that.